And welcome to Hacking Business Technology. I am Matt Hooper. Going it solo today is Matt Barron has pulled a Ferrari Tula on us and has decided to work instead of show up for this podcast. But because of you faithful listeners, we keep it going. And Mark may still be in his honeymoon after 7 weeks or whatever he's doing. I think he's actually in meetings today. His jobs are getting in the way. Well, we appreciate you listening. And again, this week we're going to cover fast enough IT or not fast enough IT. You know, it still boggles my mind when I think about the advancements we make and some of the capabilities that exist out in technology, but just how readily unavailable it is to us as corporate citizens. I was taking an Uber the other day, and I hadn't realized this, but when you take an Uber and you communicate through instant message or text message with your Uber driver, it uses the messaging app, but it actually relays that back through Uber, probably for security reasons or to track it, monitor it, but also too, it's probably to ensure consistency of service. And what I'm really impressed about with Uber, and I really haven't tried Lyft or some of these other services that are competitive. I don't know the difference. I'm pretty happy with Uber, but it is just how they can use geolocation services and communication and real-time routing. What I also didn't understand is that the GPS that the drivers use is Uber's, or it's branded or wrapped around Uber application somehow. So they've embedded the GPS into their app, again, probably to track the drivers, to make sure they go to the right places, pick them up at the right destination, drop them off, make sure that everything's done properly, and probably, again, for security reasons. One of the things Uber's committed to is the safety of its passengers, right? So you look at the speed and execution in which they were able to go to market and bring these features and the level of complexity that they have within their technology and the sophistication that it is and the constant revamping and initiatives they have. And yet, we don't even have the capabilities to find where a printer sits to replace its toner. You know, it's something that, and then there's technologies. I know Printer Logic and a few others out there have some technology to help you find and map your printers. But, you know, in reality, do we need all that? I mean, we have geolocation capabilities on our phones. And with wireless signals, we could actually get down to pretty much centimeters between multiple access points within a corporate environment. You know, way more than in your home, or way more than in your car. But why aren't we leveraging these things? What will it take for us to find paths of innovation into the corporate environment? When are we going to be able to walk up to assets and take a picture of them and find the location and then take action on that, replace that asset through an order entry system? You know, we just look at just how IT is able even to support itself, which has become one of the largest departments in most organizations. Or as I like to say, it's not even a department, it's a competency, right, that exists in every department. So the spend on technology just continues to rise, yet our ability to be agile and nimble just continues to miss ourselves. You know, and I think sometimes too that we are a victim of our own circumstance. I remember days back when I used to try to resolve instability in infrastructure within the manufacturing company that I worked for. I had a team of IT professionals that worked for me when I was in Utah as a data center manager. And I tell you then, you know, the technology wasn't that emerging, but the use of it certainly was. What we were doing in the e-commerce space, what we were doing for EDI transactions between corporations, how we were leveraging FTP and the internet to truly innovate what had been a paper-based or mail-based shipping of acknowledgement forms or order forms or bill of materials, or to place orders with our suppliers using the phone and other paper-based manual processes, was pretty innovative. And what we realized very quickly is that a system that had a human as a latency point didn't need the integrity that a system that had another system as its endpoint. What I mean is, if someone was answering the phone to take your order, they could always just write it down. When the system came back up, they could type it in then. That happened quite frequently. It's pretty much our backup and disaster recovery strategy for our call center. But when the system is a real-time transaction system, particularly in regulated environments like trading systems and trading platforms, where they can't let the market be influenced by other people's trades, so they have to be literally milliseconds. The latency cannot happen, right? And the integrity of the system, the availability and the performance of that system cannot happen. And when I think about now how we tried to fix that instability, we were able to address a lot of it through governance. You know, we addressed the change control procedures that we had, and we would change the way that we allowed people into the data center. Because, you know, back then, a lot of the changes you would physically make in a box, you had to walk up to the console. This is, you know, before the days of remote control necessarily, or, you know, terminal serving into your server environment. So you had to walk into the data center. So we would put lockdowns, we put barriers in place to improve our stability. And I feel very much that back in the day, you know, when I was first introduced to ITIL, that was an okay thing, right? You could introduce these control mechanisms. You could introduce controls and you could output stability. When I got the, you know, wasn't called V1 books then, when I got the books dropped to my desk, I said, wow, this is what I've been looking for. I kind of got beat up a little bit for being too much of a process guy. But to be honest with you, I ran a tight ship and I had high availability and I had pretty stable systems. But I wasn't necessarily able to respond to market demands. And I remember we were sometimes losing business opportunities because I couldn't deploy a customer fast enough, or I couldn't stand up a technology quick enough for a demo environment for a sales team. And so the balancing act, I think, started for me back in 2005, 2006, right at the precipice of when technology became more imperative to business operations. It was definitely more distributed. People had more voice over IP phones. People were more readily mobile and probably switching more to a laptop usage. So VPN access was more critical and more important. Systems that could be available via the internet through extranet services, or at that time, you know, application service providers. But yet, I don't think we necessarily changed our thinking. I don't think we changed our mindset on control. I think we continue to try to put in governance and control as a way to improve agility. And it's funny, I see now people are saying, well, we got to slow down IT to move faster. And I'm not so sure I agree anymore. Systems to systems thinking is something that we need to reinvent our thinking about, because a system isn't going to wait for the latency, right? We build systems to expect a response. I mean, think about it for a second. If you look at most error handling in an application, or even on a web page, what's a common error you get? Timeout error, right? And that timeout error is something that you built into the system. You expected a response. Why don't we expect then recovery, right? If we had thought about it and took away the human mentality of well, I'm going to ask you something, but I don't get a response, you must be down, or you must be busy. Well, systems don't need a single thread, right? Systems can rely on other systems. Interestingly enough, it was technology such as the BGP protocol back on the internet would go and look for multiple access points on an internet. And if one was down, it would switch over the other one almost instantaneously and reroute all these tables and reconfigure all the tables on the fly and re-traffic all that data. And you could have an internet link go down, but your other internet link would stay up and pretty much no one even noticed. You know, why haven't we taken that technology up the stack? Or is maybe that what DevOps is? Maybe is that what DevOps is doing for us, right? Is DevOps something that is doing something for us? Or is it something that we've always done, but we're now just doing it in a different way? I mean, I see a lot of things in DevOps that I'm really excited about, and I go, that's pretty cool, that's pretty innovative. But then I stop and I think, well, in some ways we did a lot of that a long time ago. Like Chaos Monkey, for instance. Chaos Monkey is, if you're familiar with DevOps, is this thing that Netflix runs in their environment, randomly shutting down servers and databases and applications to just test the integrity of the high availability, to test the resiliency of the technology and its design. But you know, we kind of had that back in the early 2000s. Of course, we called them users, and they would test our resiliency. But we would think about that design. We would think about high availability. You know, we would have load balancers and technologies that would front end multiple websites. And we would think about stateless connectivity. One whole web stack went down, the web and application server. You could switch over with the session information you needed to connect to another web stack and keep that session going pretty much transparently. You know, there were technologies such as ATG Dynamo and other things that were constantly rerouting and self-healing and doing error detection and analysis. So I don't know that DevOps is all that much. I got challenged by a good guy over at Chef when they were saying, well, why is DevOps so popular? Why is containers so popular? And he said Docker. I challenged him, and I said, no, I don't think so. I don't know that it's necessarily Docker. Docker certainly has made it easier, and it's certainly popular. You know, sometimes you just need buy-in, right? Sometimes you just need people to get on the same page. I think that's what we had with Linux. There was a bunch of different operating systems. OS2 was still, I think, better than Linux 25 years ago. But everyone bought into it. And people bought into Linux. I think that's what took it off. I think people bought into Docker. That's what's taking it off. And these containers, because they're easier, it allows you for basically failover. You can fail faster, right? Because you can image things quicker. You can make your recovery almost instantaneous. You can take where you are and protect it because it's digital. I started to think about that in the ITSM space. We don't think that mentality. I mean, how many times have we looked at, you know, processes and how much work we go through to make a massive change to a process? And how many times have you ever tried to say to yourself, well, let's just snapshot it. And if that process doesn't work, we'll just roll back and we'll try it again. I think that's pretty much unheard of. I'm not even really sure how that would work. But think about that for a second. We're still designing ITSM because of the human latency issue. We're still designing ITSM because of the human problem, right? We're trying to still manage the services of the business and the services of technology from a human perspective. But really, the level of complexity that exists today in most modern businesses because of the digital assets, and because of the level of digital support that they have across their processes, they shouldn't be managed by humans, should they? They should be managed by technology. And if that was the case, then how would we build technology management for service management? Is it something that really requires true human interfacing? Or does the intelligence already exist? I challenge that the data already exists. I challenge that we probably have enough data to make a system smart enough about making that decision than we think it does. And it would make a better decision, it would make it faster. It would get the person from the point that they are to the destination they are. See, Uber did that, right? Uber took, where are the drivers? Where are the people? What? And it uses routing algorithms to determine it. If you pay attention, Uber just recently launched this new thing called Pool, which is if I don't want to pay $36 to go to the airport, well, maybe there's somebody in and around me within an hour or so who also wants to go to the airport. And I can split it with them, and we'll just each pay 18 bucks. So if you're at a hotel and you're trying to get to the airport, there might likely be another Uber user traveling within an hour of you. Most of us who travel for corporate know this. So with the increased demand and the demand options, technology then has learned to just adjust to the data it needs. So it asks you, how long are you willing to wait? So it's interesting. You know, we're so tied up, for instance, in approving requests and streamlining approval requests to order people things on the fly. But how many of us really do that? And then we end up pulling it manually. Well, how about if you had 10 people ask for new laptops of a certain type? Why not query your CMDB and then go ask those other 522 people who also have a laptop of that type, saying, hey, are you also thinking about upgrading soon? Because then you could just get replacements all done in one shot, get better pricing, image them easier, manage the deployment of it. The latency would be less. Support that much faster. I don't know. I think there's a new way for us to be thinking about fast IT. I think we could re-examine the way that we look at the data we collect, how we know systems are integrated, how we route things, how we forward things, how we automate things, how we notify people. You know, how many of our ITSM tools are truly working with text messaging, DM on Twitter, or putting it into a Slack thread? You know, I don't know. I get asked a lot about it, that's for sure. And it's possible, but I don't know people are really doing it. Right? We still have the default of email as our communication system, which again, it's a asynchronous tool that really doesn't require a response. We just send it off and hope someone reads it. Hopefully they get to it. Hopefully they approve it. That just slows everything down. That does give us a transparency. So those are my thoughts for today. I think that's how you hack business technology. You ask these questions, you rethink things, you rethink where you are, you rethink where you want to go. How can you make things faster? Because technology is all about removing performance constraints, right? And as technology professionals, we want to remove the constraints that get us to that technology, that remove constraints. That makes the business faster, that makes us more powerful. So thanks again for joining in this week. Hopefully next week we'll have our full cast again. Have a great weekend, everybody.